Welcome back to another episode of DadMode God, Grit, and Goals. I'm your host, Mike Tobias, and today we're diving into the heart of what happens when a vision so strong, so clear, grips you, and then, as you step out in faith, the inevitable doubts sneak in. Have you ever felt called to something great, only to find yourself wrestling with uncertainty soon after? Well, you're not alone, and today I'm going to share a personal story that might just change how you see miracles in your own life. I've been working on a project on the side, and kind of hit this point of doubt. I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you. That's actually what I wanted to talk about today. Just wanted to talk about the journey that you go on when you see something that's so compelling. You're like, oh man, I need to do that. And then you get started and you're like, okay, I'm doing it. And then after a while, you're like, oh, wow, this is kind of a slog. Am I really doing this? Or should I be doing this? Why am I doing this? And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation like that. Maybe you started a new job and you're not sure. It's always exciting to get the job. Then you have it for a while. Could be a relationship. You met somebody and you're like, ooh, they are the one. And then after a while, it's like, we're going, and then, not sure this is the right thing. It's a cycle that we go through. Maybe it is with an investment. There's all kinds of domains, and so I want to talk about that. And I'm going to share with you something that's grabbed my attention, and I'm just going to share it because you're going to see me posting more about it. And I'm going to preface all this to say, if there's one thing I've learned in my life, it is I could be wrong, and I very well acknowledge that as I'm about to share it with you. And I think that was really the prompting of doing this episode and just talking with you, because a month or so ago, I got really excited about an idea, and I've been chewing on some things, this intersection between religion and science, or faith and science, or belief in God or not God, or is it God and Jesus, and how does all that work, and what about black holes and string theory and all these things. And it's like, I'm grounded in my faith because my brother had a really bad accident when I was 12 years old, and he almost died, and he became a quadriplegic. And that was the first time I saw my family get together and pray, and he was a miracle. He is alive today, and he's a doctor. Not only did he live, he walks. And so it was a well-thought, earned miracle. It wasn't a touch from God and instantly you're healed. It was one day you can't move anything from the neck down, and 7 days later you can wiggle your big toe. It was that kind of miracle. And I watched my brother fight through that. And so this idea that, yes, there are miracles. And by definition, a miracle is that which science can't explain. It's simply that there was no explanation. The doctors were baffled, and it was a miracle. It was miraculous. And people ask me, do you believe in miracles? Absolutely. People ask, well, do you think they're from God? I'm like, yes, I do. They're from somewhere we don't know. I think that's a good definition of God, somewhere we don't know. And that's really why this thing that just popped up in my feed on TikTok. I'm a closet physics follower and CERN labs, and try and understand string theory. To say I do would be a lie. I understand that it's energy within there. I just know that they were looking for matter, like the grain of sand that everything is built on, and all they found was outer space. It's like a proton and neutron, electrons flying around. It's mostly space, but more than that, it's energy. It turns out everything is made of energy, and I always thought of God as the good energy, because there's bad energy. There's notes in the piano. There's chords you can play. I'm not a musician, but got some kids that are. It's like they can play certain chords, and it's like, hey, or other chords where it's like, oh, no. So there's strings that are positive and strings that are negative. And I believe that there's a balance in the world, that people say things like karma, right, as an example. It's like what you put out ends up coming back at you in some form or fashion. So I look at yin yang, and it's like that's the balance, that's the wrestling. And so Terrence Howard was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and in my feed was something about him redefining the atomic particle diagram. Here you go. Just proving that I'm not all that brilliant. The periodic table of elements, that's what it is. Anyway, he talked about it in this way that just captured my attention. I'm like, oh, wow, that's really wild. And began articulating, I was starting to see things, and so it started with that. Like, so just so you know how weird I am, if you don't have the table of elements showing up in your TikTok feed, then you just don't have a good feed. So, yeah, I'm a geek with that reads papers and patents and does that kind of stuff. And so I began to dig into this thing, first investigative, and then I was like, oh my gosh. So I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast with Terrence Deshaun Howard, and I've literally listened to it over 5 times now. I've taken notes. I've dug through the patents. I know which patents are applied for, which ones were suspended, which ones are waiting for an answer, which ones are granted. And I've cataloged all of that. And so I've been digging through that. And then I've been doing some sessions with ChatGPT. Now, I know a lot of people have heard about that. It communicates. That's what it does. But it also is great for research. So if you're doing research. And I found just a ton of information. So I set up a researcher. I set up an editor. I set up a writer. I set up a critic. And I set up an assistant, and I set up a marketer. So these were all roles that I created in my ChatGPT setup. And I went about to build a library of research, put all the patents in there. And so I was giving it its repository of things, knowledge that it could glean from. Because if you were to ask it anything, it's not going to give you the answer you want because you're not asking in a sophisticated enough way. And so with ChatGPT, it can talk to you at any level. And so you have to tell it what level they are as a communicator. And that's why I've set up these roles and these rules to help me learn, to help me understand, and then compare and contrast. And so I'll give you an example. When I was growing up, diamonds came out of the ground. Now you create them in a lab. So one of the questions I had was, what is the lab environment and how are these diamonds made artificially? Because it has to be under a lot of pressure, because it's carbon under pressure that makes a diamond. So how are they doing that? And this is a very specific example for this one specific reason, and that is that part of Howard's theory is that there are different pressure conditions closer or further away from the sun. And the closer you are to the sun, there's more pressure. imagine it being like the ocean. The ocean, the further down you go, you're more under pressure. That's why you get the bends, right? That's why you got to keep time, and you don't want to be down there too long. And if you're there too long, you come back, you could kill yourself, right? And so this is actually, he's saying that outer space isn't empty, it's not zero, that there's stuff there, and it's called the ether. And this was a belief that was strongly held in the late 1800s and became decimated by Albert Einstein. And so there's a history here and there's an understanding. So I'm walking through this journey, and I'm not going to share all of it with you, but I will be sharing more because this was like the, oh my gosh, idea. And I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they're like, that guy's a wackadoodle. And I was like, yes, there's a lot of people that think that, and I can understand that. But there's also a lot of discussion from people that are wondering. And so I'm kind of on this investigative journey to get it satisfactorily answered myself, right? And there's so much I don't know, so I'm in way over my head as far as the topic goes. But I know one thing that I've been, I'll say, gifted with my whole life is being able to take complicated things and make them simple so people can understand them. It doesn't mean I understand within the complications or could build it or do anything like that. It's just that I have a high comprehension ability, I guess, and a way to organize information in my head that allows me to make a lot of connections. So in so doing, I'm using ChatGPT to help me communicate those, because that's really time consuming for me. And I want to get on to the next idea, because it's the integration. Things aren't that simple. It's science, it's religion, it's philosophy. Religion and philosophy are very, very closely linked. And it's human behavior. So there's psychology as part of it, and all of these domains. And so anyway, this is all going through my head. I've been leaping into action. I've been producing content. I'm literally in the middle of writing. I was writing a book, and I was like, oh man, that book needs a precursor to it. So I was like, oh shoot. So I put the first book aside, and I started writing the second book, because people actually need to know any of this stuff. And then I can get to a larger point, which will be my second book. So this first book, which was it's the one I'm working on now, which is actually the second book I'm writing. The working title was Understanding Deshaun Howard for Dummies. And that's the goal of it. That's not the title. And I've been trying to figure this out myself. And so this is all information that's out there. If you dig through it, I'm trying to give the references for it, but I'm trying to present it in a way that answers the question, what's the potential of this if he's actually right? Because he's either crazy or he's right. And if he's right, then he's Galileo type right. And if you just Google Galileo and what happened to him, because he's the one that said that everything doesn't revolve around the earth. There's a much different picture out there. And everybody wanted to believe that everything revolved around them. And that has been our history. That's the way we are as individuals. But that's not how the world works. And so this is a fundamental shift in that. In so understanding, it has implications far and wide, from technology to all kinds of things. And the promise of that could be the end of petroleum as an energy source and low-cost energy for everybody, kind of anywhere, which is mind-boggling. Um, so think cars, think of something that could heat your home or air condition it. It's the size of a microwave oven. It's like, whoa, how's that even possible? So this is really crazy sci-fi stuff. But I could be wrong. And that is where I found myself. I'm like, what if I'm just following a fool? I didn't give that any credence earlier. Well, it was just captivating it. But the more you do, the more bought in you get, right? And so that's what I've been going through, in that creep of doubt. And I don't know your story. Doubts follow bold actions and decisions. And so now is the soul searching, right? It's like, well, what do I do with my time? Where do I invest? Should I let it go? Should I keep going? And all the doubts about yourself. Like, what makes you think you can write? You don't know anybody. You don't know how, what am I just, I've been writing emails to contact information that I can find to try and get a hold of Terrence Howard or anyone from his team, really. I'm chasing this down, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not an idiot either. And so I'm just trying to find the truth. I think this is a worthwhile endeavor to go do that. And I think that's helped me with the doubt, because if my goal was to prove him right or prove him wrong, that is his burden to bear. And I want to help him bear it for so long as I believe in it. I think that's a good way to say it. And in so doing, I want to give the benefit of the doubt, but I also want to use investigative rigor in order to satisfy those doubts, because I think the ultimate confidence comes from that. That's been my pursuit of God as well. And so this is why we have to have faith. And faith without works is dead. And as soon as I stop working on it, it's going to die. And that's pressing me on. Every day I don't want to do it, but I do it anyway. It works with your sit-ups, your push-ups, how you eat, and how you think, and what things you decide to pursue and pay attention to. And the Lord's going to drop a vision on you. Something is going to capture your attention. Let's put it that way. You can say the Lord dropped a vision on you, or you can say, I saw something and I can't unsee it. And now I need to go pursue it. And I'm going to leap into action. And beware that creep of doubt, because it's going to come and steal your dream. And don't let it do that. Fear not. That's what the Lord says. Hold steadfast. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I asked ChatGPT, give me 3 scriptures. And so it gave me these. Matthew 14:22 through 33. Peter walks on water. This passage illustrates taking bold action inspired by faith. Peter stepping out of the boat and immediately doubts that arise. Peter seeing the wind and beginning to sink. It's a powerful example of how doubt can interrupt even the strongest acts of faith, and how Jesus supports us through all those moments. That's a good one. Next one was Exodus 3:1 through 4:17. 3:1 through 4:17. That's Moses at the burning bush. Yes, love this. So this section of Exodus covers Moses being called by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. It's filled with Moses' hesitations and doubts about his ability and the people's willingness to believe him. God provides reassurances and signs, emphasizing his support and presence in overcoming doubts. And finally, this is one I would have thought of, Elijah in the cave. So this is from 1 Kings 19:9 through 18. After a major city, Elijah flees to a cave, overwhelmed by fear and doubt about his impact as a prophet. Well, that's good. God appears to Elijah, not in spectacular phenomenon, but in a gentle whisper, teaching about finding strength and reassurance in quiet, steady faith amidst fear and uncertainty. Nice, that's a good one. I think we could all use a little of that. So, if you're on that journey, I want to encourage you that hang in there and stick with it. The doubts are going to come, but you will, the Lord's going to open doors for you. That even though not every light is green between here and where I intend to go, they're not all green lights, but I am moving down the road. And I'm going to hit the next light, and I'm going to hit a detour, and I'm going to have to decide whether I want to go fill up with gas again, all those things. And what if I get injured along the way? I'm going to get back up and keep going. All those things we contend with. And the doubts are coming. And the doubts come from the thief. He comes to lie and kill and destroy. So carry on, my friend. Hope this was helpful for you today. Look forward to sharing more. So as we wrap up today's journey through vision and doubt, remember the story of my brother, the true testament to the power of persistent faith and prayer. So what's your story? Share it with us on social media or in the comments below. Your experiences could be the beacon of hope someone needs to hear today. Next time, we'll explore another dimension of faith that challenges us to grow even when the path isn't clear. Thanks for joining me. I'm Mike Tobias on DadMode, God, Grit, and Goals. Stay inspired, keep pushing through the doubts, and God bless.